tails over here, kind of just like you guys are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you tell people that they truly can be free, the powers that be do not like them being free.
Man, I'll tell you, yeah, that is absolutely the truth in the physical world as well as the spiritual as well. I know that when you're on the right side of God and you're telling truth and spreading the gospel, you can expect to have things come up in your life that haven't plagued you in the past. Has that been your experience?
100%.
All right. Well, to jump back in where we were going, and kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit with you is, while we have a great opportunity to ask you questions in a kind of maybe a genre that is actually kind of developing in real time, and that is tactical equipment or military grade equipment that is for the common civilian that applies. Now, we have definitely very different needs, and many of us in the past have went the military route and found out that that was just maybe not a very good fit for us. Like, a lot of us want to wear armor, want to be protected, want to have our kids and family protected, but we can't really go out wearing full on military plates. So this is an exciting time for me where we actually have choices as civilians for tools that we can use to help protect us and keep our families safe.
Yeah, you have more choices now than have ever existed. We've got gear that's super light. We make a rig called the covert rig. You can throw it on under a hoodie, any button-up shirt, any flannel, anything like that. Jump out at the gas station, have 4 mags, comms, and everything on you, minus the full-size rifle. Nobody would even know that thing's there. And with carbines as small as they are now, you could even have that under just a jacket, not even zipped up, and nobody would even look twice at that. Ankle med kit, we can keep that, right under the pants leg. Nobody would really even see that. They would just think you're wearing a pair of boots. Now, I mean, a guy that knows what that is would identify, but 99% of the people walking around wouldn't have a clue that it's there.
99% is about right. Back in the day when I was younger and a little bit more foolish, I got into this open carry movement, and I thought in my mind, I have every right to open carry, and I'm just going to do that. And so I kind of made a point of going into public places in Portland, open carrying, expecting some sort of a reaction. What I found out was no one noticed.
Correct. Only we notice.
I'd stand in line at a coffee shop with a outside the waistband Kydex and a Glock 19 or a near full size or mid size pistol, and people weren't even aware of it. I don't hardly remember anyone ever even taking note of it.
Right.
Hey, what's your biggest seller to people that are non-military? What are people really interested in looking for? Is it an ability to carry a long gun? Is it the ability to have body armor, or what are you seeing is the greatest need right now?
So 95% of our customers right now probably are civilians. We don't chase any government contract stuff. If we do anything, it's very small unit, and the way they write the contract has our name and the part number. So we're going to be awarded the contract no matter which vendor or prime vendor that it goes through. We use social media very, very heavily now, and we've got a really good SMS, text message, and email app. So we kind of show what we're building every day, and people jump on the live feed at night, and it usually sells out within a few minutes. So with the environment the way that it is now and the economy and everything, we just kind of hit it, quit it, on to the next thing. So if we can build 100 of something, we're really going to probably build 80 so that there's a velocity on it. And we do a rig called the micro rig, and we've probably got 6 different rigs in that line. We do a split front chest rig. We also do bigger rigs. We do like the NSW chest rig. We're constantly, every day, we are running out of some kind of rifle sling or shotgun cards. Tool bags, we can't keep tool bags in stock. Medical's enormous because guys will kind of jump in. That's kind of the gateway. It's something that they can get in and kind of get into that tactical area. Plus, anybody carrying a gun, you're much more apt to plug holes than to make holes, right? You're more apt to come up on a scene where somebody needs assistance rather than a gunfight. So medical is something you can kind of break into at a low cost of entry too. Everybody can carry it, no matter legalities of firearm. Everybody can carry medical, and there's companies out there that do teach firearms training and tactical type stuff. And then you'll see students that show up at those classes that have no firearm skills, but they're there for the medical classes. So we do a lot. We probably do 20, 30 different items to carry tourniquets and carry med kits and different size med kits. We do a mass casualty aid bag, a backpack, and then as well as backpacks, we make several different versions of. We make a mini pack, we make a big medical backpack, we do a day pack. We can't, like, I own 52 sewing machines, and I live in the most impoverished county of all of Tennessee. I have never had more than 20 of those machines run at one time. I love living here, but my bottleneck is labor, human beings.
Yeah. Well, one thing is kind of cool. I'm starting to see, even myself, like when a guy becomes more aware of global supply chain issues, and then even just the social side of it. In the past, I never really considered, yeah, I want to just buy something on Amazon or a pair of boots at Walmart or a backpack, not really giving any thought to the back end of it. Who's building it? Where's it being built? What's it being built out of? And just what are the implications socially for that? It's a big deal to me now, and a lot of people that I know that it hasn't been in the past, where we want to know where things come from, and it makes a big difference. I'm willing to pay more, knowing that things are going to be made using good materials, that the people that are building them are getting paid a living wage and being taken care of and treated with respect. That matters to me. Are you seeing people willing to put their money where their mouth is regarding those issues?
Our clients always have been. We're very transparent. Like, I walk around the shop here all the time with a live video on through the day. I've got human beings right on the other side of this wall. As you being on the internet, people say crazy stuff all the time. I'll put a live on and they're like, oh, this guy builds all this stuff in China. I have U.S. citizens. Actually, we'll walk out there in a minute and you can see the sew floor. I've got human beings and we pay them. Like, there's a Carhartt here in town. I have people working on my floor that have been here 5 years, making more than 20-year employees at Carhartt. So we hire everybody that we can. We use as much U.S. manufacturers' goods as possible. We cut everything. Everything happens 100% right under this roof right here.
I think it was interesting to hear about the medical side, because there's a lot of people coming to the knowledge of what's taking place, and that may have been anti-gun or even never really considered it before. I like the medical aspect of it because that really is kind of the gateway, like you said. There are a lot of people that would be interested in, maybe, let's say, wives and girlfriends that weren't raised with gun families or hunting families. That might be a good entry level or gateway to get them into the whole thing on that medical side. Is that what you're seeing? Are you starting to see people that are anti-gun coming in from that direction?
We see people waking up for sure, especially the last few years, the crazy stuff that happened. We saw a lot of people from the coast, like California and New York, sold their houses way overvalued. They were able to come out here and buy property. And then they kind of get stuck in that they're like, okay, we want to build my McMansion now. And the contractors say, okay, we'll start in 4 to 5 years. So you've got these city folks that are now living in, tiny houses, and they're making a go of it, right? They're doing the homestead stuff. They're definitely learning. For instance, like, we're about to do a chainsaw class here in 2 weeks, and we've promoted that out to our clientele base. But a couple ahead of time in the local area here, we'll open that up for free so that they can come in, because we've got a ton of people here that all of a sudden have bought chainsaws and don't have any clue how to safely use them. So yeah, we see a lot of people come in for medical classes. We do SelfReliance Festival here twice, sometimes 3 times a year. We're about to have our 7th one. And we had Refuge Medical come in here and teach a Stop the Bleed, a TCCC tourniquet class. And we filled that class up twice, back to back to back. And, we had, I think, over 140 people took that tourniquet class who were here in town. So yeah, we definitely, it is, man. People are hungry for knowledge. And I think that just seeing the crazy stuff that's happened, they had this false sense of security that you could call 911 and somebody would come save you. And they realized that was a falsehood. It's the false sense that society is held together by law. And I think they're realizing that that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. What I've noticed with your company is that from just walking on the sewing room floor, showing people what's going on, just keeping everyone in the loop, and then all the social outreach. This kind of, I would imagine you guys kind of came to this Reliance Festival that you're putting on. It's been going on for 7 years. This kind of just happened by accident, the same way things have been happening around here, where originally we were just putting up content. Originally, you were just manufacturing a product, but you start to see, well, the product's out there that everyone's got it, but what they really need is they need to know how to use this stuff. Everyone has a blowout kit, everyone has a tourniquet, but have they actually put one on? And like you said, that's really the piece of gear that you're going to use. I've got all the stuff. I've got the night vision and the body armor and all the medical stuff. But the only one that I use regularly and have used regularly is that first aid kit, whether it be rolling up on a car accident or someone skins a knee at the house. That really is where you want to start, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the SelfReliance Festival came from, I bought a place up the street from the old shop that was 10 acres and it was completely overgrown. And we didn't originally plan to put the company in here. When we bought the building, the doors were welded shut. There was no electrical in there. It had been vandalized. We built it out. And we used to have big parties up here, and we'd have 1,000 people come from around the world. And we'd have machine guns and live music and food trucks. And then during the CUFUS, I did a kind of, we didn't promote it, but we still had 200 people show up. And I said, I feel bad. I don't have music. We didn't bring in, there's no machine guns. There's no fireworks. And guys said, we just want to see the aquaponics. We want to see the greenhouse. We want to see the chickens. We want to see the rabbits. So I got with my friend Nicole, who's kind of been doing her own events. And I said, hey, I think there's really something here. People are hungry for this. And she said, well, how involved do you want to be? I said, well, I want you to do all the footwork and I want to take all the credit for it. And she's really put this together, and it's really grown into something else. And now we've got, Joel Salatin is coming out here to present here in October, and, really big names in those industries are coming out. He's doing a chicken processing class here. So like my employees, we got 200 chickens here. We've got sheep and all kinds of animals. My employees haven't bought eggs in the last 3 years. We cook breakfast and lunch for all the employees that want to eat. And we just, as much as they want to be involved, we have knowledge. People come in all the time and they say, hey, I saw your video. Can I see the property? So I'll always stop and show people how to do what we're doing. So it's just kind of a gateway. Like they come in, people come here a lot and have no idea what SOE actually does. They come here because of the, Day on the Compound videos or some of our podcast videos. Like a lot of people have no idea that this is a sew shop in here.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I first kind of got involved with this aspect of the education side of it when we were speaking at Mother Earth news fairs, and that kind of led to the Overland Crowd. So we started going to some of the big overland groups. And what astonished me is kind of growing up, white trash, blue collar type of people. I always associated that type of self-reliance and guns and four-wheel drives with a particular crowd. But what really surprised me at the Overland Festivals was that was not the case at all. Yes, those guys were there, but there were a lot of very interesting, very professional, a lot of highly connected government people that were there because they have a genuine concern about where things are going. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from a lot of guys is, okay, I get it. I'm on board. I've got the gear. I'm planting a garden. I'm looking for a traditional wife. I'm looking for land and all that. My biggest obstacle is I cannot find like-minded men. I feel like I'm all alone. What would you advise someone? How do you get plugged into a group?
So I feel, well, what I would have said years ago is different from what I would say right now. I think if you do what you truly believe in your heart is right, then the right people will show up that have those values. So guys all the time are like, I want to do this thing. And I said, okay, well, why aren't you doing it? Well, I can't afford to. Well, what is it that you spend your entire year working for? You get up and do a job you don't like, and you go someplace to make a small amount of money, and then you go on vacation for a week every year. What if we could just change your lifestyle, and instead that thing that you save up all year to go do, You just do that instead. And how do we develop that to multiple streams of income, right? Social media, show your social media, show your videos. The people that are interested will be attracted to it. You're not going to find a good woman that's going to have the values to raise children you like at a bar, right? You have to go do things, especially in the prepper community. People are like, how do I find a woman? Well, you got to go where she's at. You know, if you want somebody that believes in the scripture, you should probably find somebody that reads the scriptures, right? You're not going to find her at a bar. If you want somebody that'll do outdoor stuff, you should probably go where there's outdoor stuff. And if you just show what you do, that's why with the SelfReliance Festival, man, we have people all the time coming in here who have met each other. We got a couple that comes from California, lives 15 minutes away from each other, and has never met each other until they came here. And what did they come here for? They came here because they believed in what was happening. They wanted to be self-reliant. They wanted to homestead. They wanted to produce their own food. They wanted to take what they love doing and figure out how to make money doing that. And that we've got 12 couples who have been married, who have come to the festivals and met each other at the festival. So do what you believe is right, and the correct people will show up for that.
Yeah, it's really all that simple. There's two important things that I think that you said. One is, if you can identify where your heart is, where you're spending your time, and if you have to, like you said, most guys are doing jobs that they don't like, getting a paycheck, short vacations and stuff, miserable, absolutely miserable, not getting ahead, not getting any traction. What I've found with life is I've done those jobs like that, but if you can identify, like you said, what it is that you is where your heart is, where you find your off time spent doing, and turn that into work or turn that into a revenue stream, that's really the key, because a guy's willing to put 14, 15 hours a day if you're doing something that you're really enthusiastic about, that you really like.
Yeah, and that's what I say. You know, you go to work all these times. People always like to tell me, you're just about money, or it's not all about money. And what I like to say is, then why do you get up every morning early and go to a place you hate for so little of it? If that's the case, right? Money makes everything easier. It gives you the ability. You know, if somebody was going to take $100 million and put it in your bank account and it's truly yours tomorrow, would most people be doing tomorrow what they're doing today? And if they're truthful with themselves, the answer is no, right? So let's identify that. What is that thing that you work all week for to be able to do on the weekend for a little bit, right? What is that hobby that you're really passionate about? When I was out, I'd go dirt biking and skiing at Big Bear and out to Ocotillo Wells and everything. But every time I was out scuba diving, I'm thinking about what I'm going to build when I get home on the sewing machine, right? We made a camelback bladder, goes on the tank. So when we're down, I can pop my regulator out, fresh water, rinse my mouth so you don't get cotton mouth while you're scuba diving. How do we, rig this I made some binding carriers that strap my skis together for skiing. That was that thing. I was always working jobs that I really didn't like to have money to buy materials to do the real job. So let's figure out what you love, and then come to me, come to whoever you come to. I don't charge anything for it. Let's just discuss how you start making content off of that and revenue off of that, right? You build a product. What's your hobby? What's that thing? And it just starts with identifying it, right? There's always a way to monetize it so that you can make a living doing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And you'll enjoy your work. And then when I'm in an environment like that, where instead of waking up Monday morning and dreading the week and dreading what you have to do, you actually jump out of bed and you're excited. Sometimes I can't even have time for breakfast because I'm so excited about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It just is a better way to live, and a much happier way to live.
Yeah, I get up, typically I want to be up at 4:30 every morning. Typically I go to bed, I want to go to bed at 11:30. I'm usually not, lights off are usually 12. And at 4:30, there's no alarm in the bedroom. I just look at the clock. It's 4:30, 4:20. I get up. I'm excited to do what it is I'm going to do. Right now, I'm sitting in a pretty big-sized gym, right? I'm going to get up at 4:30 every morning. I'm going to make a short 2-minute video for Instagram. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to work out for 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm going to be in the building, in the shop by 5:30, 6 o'clock, before any employees ever get here. I'm going to walk outside. I'm going to water a giant garden. Like I have built everything that I like to do into where I work. It's all here. We call it the SOE compound. And we've got everything's here, man. When we first moved in here, I had a motocross track, and we built all the motocross track for 2-seat razors, because if you could hit it with a 2-seat, you could hit it with a 1 or a dirt bike. We had a full-blown motocross track here.
Right.
And it's kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, some of the jumps are still here, but I just do things, and then I figure out how to take the things I like to do so that my accountants are happy with them, right? We build some product. We use the Toyotas in all the marketing. We use the razors in the marketing, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. So regarding finding like-minded people, I've been encouraging, this question comes up all the time. I've been encouraging guys to get into a couple different type of things. One thing that I understood that I made a huge mistake at when 20 years ago, when God put this message on our heart to get out of the city, that wasn't a appropriate place to raise a family. We really felt that urge. My wife and I were on board. My initial idea was, okay, I've got this idea. I've got this mandate from the Almighty. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make this happen. And what I left out, the vital component that I left out of that was community. And what I didn't realize at the time, I thought that I could go up on the side of a mountain and scratch out an off-grid place and do everything myself. And I did to a certain extent, but just to wake up and realize after everything was done, how hard the work was, how much extra labor it caused me doing everything by myself. And then I found myself in a very unenviable position where I've got to sleep sometime. There's no way, if everything goes sideways, that I would be able to stand against anything being here with my wife and myself. I need community. That's the number one thing. And we pulled up stakes and everything that we've built for 10 years to move to a place with like-minded people. And now I'm so grateful for that. Can you talk about the importance of not being a lone man in an island, that you have to have this community to survive and to thrive in the coming decades?
You absolutely have to have it. A lot of people we get an instant gratification when we jump in bed and we jump on Amazon and buy some water purification or whatever, right? I was talking the other night. A lot of guys have, PVS 31s or dual tube 14s or whatever, right? But they've never driven with those things. They don't realize that when you put on the counterbalance, and guys have a skull crusher and don't have a proper helmet or whatever, you might have the best rig in the world. Go drive in that thing for 30 minutes. Your neck's going to hurt for the next, couple days. You're gonna get a headache from it because we're not conditioned to it. We collect things rather than try them out and use them. I mean, if you really want to see, go dig some fighting positions with a shovel and a pickaxe by yourself and see how that goes. Go fill 100 sandbags. Go try to run some triple strand wire out by yourself. Right? It's a force multiplier. I have equipment here. I've got a skid steer with grapple. Right? We have excavators. I can lift. I can lift up rail ties, right? I used to just pick up rail ties. I'm 52 now. I feel things for quite a while after the fact now. So yeah, you do. And then having kids, man, all of my kids are grown. They're close, but they're not here, right? So if something happened, an emergency or something, and you think you're going to secure your property, man, I need 8 people here 24 hours a day, which means I need 16 people really, to protect or somewhat overwatch the property. People just have this idea because they watch prepper fiction or they listen to audiobooks or they're watching The Walking Dead or whatever it is they're watching. All that goes out the window when something happens real. And they just have, they don't, I don't know, man. I feel like nobody has any hardship right now. Nobody walks out their door and something pounces on them, right? Most people have never experienced coming home and the electricity's off or the water's off. As long as you've got this rectangle of death right here that we watch, you've got the amusement and the entertainment, and you've got power to power it. No, everybody just, they're appeased is really what it is. They don't go outside. Most people you run into don't have calluses on their hands anymore. They don't know what it's like to sweat. Man, when I was 13 years old, they would drop me off on a job site down by Bonita in San Diego with a pickaxe, a sledgehammer, and a wheelbarrow. And they would come back 7 hours later, and I would have the concrete patio busted up with a sledgehammer and all the concrete around front. And then I would pick all that. I was running through a pair of gloves every 2 days. I was just destroying a pair of leather work gloves. That work like that doesn't exist anymore. Kids and that's all of our faults, right? We raised those kids. Now my kids, luckily, are in the trades, and they went through TCAP, and they do machining, and do construction work and stuff. But the government school system, we kicked women out of the house, told them that they were not of value if they didn't go get a job. So now the school, we're beholden to the government school system to put our kids in there to educate them. And then we wonder 18 years later or 12 years later why our kids come home hating our values, right? Because we send our kids to a place where the people hate our way of life, right? Most of the people, not all, there's some great school teachers. I had a couple of good school teachers too. Most of them don't have their own kids, right? Why would we send our kids to a place to be raised by people who don't have kids? And we've just bred this whole generation. And I do question whether it's just me getting old and grumpy, because I remember my grandfather saying this too, kids these days. But I don't know. Just build something that is right, and the right people will show up. From doing these videos, I've done some help wanted videos on YouTube, and I literally spend 15 minutes telling you that you don't want to come work here. So I'm going to try to pre-qualify it, and we to work here. I've got a guy, I have several of them. Everybody that works here, my women, most of them are within an hour of here and commute to work. The guys that work here, because I work with them out on the compound, and I need real people in case, these guys that work here are not just here to do the business inside the business. They are here because if society collapsed or we needed to go do something else, if the power went out, these people are still capable. And that's kind of how I've done that. I don't have enough of them, but we've got to start, and we do have a community. We know the neighbors. There's a lot of people that have moved to this county in the last 3 years because of all the things that happened over the last 3 years, and they are like-minded.
So can we talk about gear a little bit? Can we switch gears for a second?
Yeah.
So what's your take on, I'd like to pick your brain here while we have your expertise here. Let's say that a guy is just getting started, wants to have the basics. I kind of look at what I've been telling guys is you want to put together kind of, coming from the fire department, wildland firefighting, one thing that I've learned was how to manage gear and access it. It's not a small thing, especially if you're running a homestead or household, of just managing and keeping track of all the many different things you have, from small engines to tactical equipment. I mean, it's daunting, and if you're not squared away with it and have systems, it'll make you crazy. You just will not be effective. It doesn't do a guy any good to have all of this high-speed gear and everything if it's not sorted and put in a situation where, if and when you need it right now, someone's confiscating guns, there's a school shooter, what have you, that's not the time that you want to be organizing and trying to work out your systems. Could you kind of put together, what would the basics be? What should a modern day Minuteman kit consist of for a guy that wants to get into it? Where would you start, and what would you consider to be essential equipment?
Well, let's go back to line gear, right? You've got first, second, third line gear. First line gear is typically going to be your belt that you put that holds your pants up, and your firearm. You're going to have your pistol and some magazines on there. If we're going, field side, you're going to have, evasion and escape gear on there also, some survival type gear. Then you're going to have a load. You're going to have your second line gear, which is going to be your, in the old days, it was a flak vest. It's going to be body armor now, or it's going to be some kind of, rig, whether it be an LBV or it be a small chest rig or a larger chest rig. And then third line gear is your backpack. And they really started doing that. We had a helicopter go down off San Onofre, and a bunch of Force Recon Marines drowned in the helicopter. So everything kind of went back to that first, second, and removable and releasable gear and stuff then. We worked a lot with battalion reconnaissance and Force Recon guys, and the Marines really do the third line gear. We worked a lot with the SEALs, and they didn't really push that as much. Through land warfare, you would see it, but most of their missions were, fast move to gas oil platforms or ship takedowns and stuff, and moving light and moving through that stuff. So first, second, third line gear. I mean, shouldn't every man have, like, I wear Katanica shorts. If I'm not wearing Katanica shorts, I wear Cole pants, and they have a lot of pockets in them, but I'm not loaded down. You don't really see the stuff, but I've always got a knife. I've got a big folder on me. I've got a Surefire stiletto in my other pocket. I've always got some cash. I've got a bunch of different things, and then a belt, right? So on your belt, you're going to have your holster. You're going to have 2, 3 pistol mags, probably a tourniquet someplace. Usually I have a tourniquet in one of my pockets, and that's just the stuff. That's like putting on your shoes and socks. That's just the bare minimum. So from there, you know, if I walk out of the shop, typically I have a mini pack, which has a lot of stuff in there. And then I have a large tool bag also. I carry GoPros and drones and battery chargers and, you know, just all the cables and everything that goes with there. And then there's more first
That
aid in those bags.
content creating lifestyle.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, for sure. Always. Yeah. And then, you know, we've got a Forerunner and a Tundra, and those trucks always have gear in them. So even if I made it, something terrible happened and I made it out of here to the trucks always have, you know, an identical set of gear in them as well. And, you know, redundant gear, as well as stuff to, you know, if a tornado or the building burnt down and the truck didn't burn down, we could still live out of the truck for quite a while if we had to.
Yeah. It's just like you said. I haven't heard those terms before, but it was what, first line, second line, third line gear? Is that what, how to describe that? The perfect example, I think, of what John's talking about, you know, we spoke to this about the phone the other day, was, let's take, for example, just to pick a sport. Like, I'm really into moto. You know, we ride right from the house. We do hard enduro up in the mountains. And there are different things that we take for different reasons. If I'm going to be going up, just doing a jaunt up to the snow park, I'm not going to be carrying the things that I'm going to go for a 100-mile loop, that sort of thing. However, I'm not reinventing the wheel every time. It's a system of adding things to an existing system so that you get familiar with using them. Like, I want my daily carry, my everyday carry, I want it to be the one that the firearm that I'm used to. I don't want to have something that's all super high speed and spec'd out that I've never used, never carried, never shot. I want cross compatibility with everything. So if I'm going to be going to church, the holster that I'm wearing in the church is going to be high conceal, is going to be very different than something I'm going to be wearing overtly on the farm, but it needs to carry the same firearm. It needs to be compatible in that way. The perfect example, what we're talking about, is that, let's say, for example, with the moto or kayaking or whatever sport it is, there's a high probability that you're going to be separated from your equipment, from your tractor, from your dirt bike. It could go over a bank. You could lose your canoe. You could lose your kayak. And if you're storing gear in that, you know, that's your survival stuff, you know, your communications, your tourniquet, your medical stuff. You know, what good does it do you? So one principle I think is a good idea that we spoke to is that those life-saving items, those life-critical items, medical equipment, if you're using Garmin and you need to communicate, you know, through satellite, ACR, those things that are life-threatening, they're going to stop life-threatening issues. Those need to be on your body at all times. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, what happens if you crash and get separated from the bike, or you have a rollover in the vehicle and you're thrown from the vehicle, right? What if, I mean, it's just like having a chainsaw. Everybody's like, well, I'll just you know, dial the phone. If you got blood and stuff all over your phone, a lot of those phones aren't going to open up if you got blood all over your hands when that happens. You need to have a plan for that. You can program your phone, you know, you can say call 911, you know, and it'll actually dial it. Do we know that, right? Have we tested that? It's just like having medical stuff. Have a tourniquet on your body, not on your bars. What if you're thrown from that thing and you land on something? I mean, it's just so easy to do. And a tourniquet, for example, you could have multiple tourniquets, you know, $25. You can just have them staged in multiple places.
Chainsaw wounds. I have a gear request, or maybe you're already doing this. Have you seen anyone doing a dedicated IFAC for guys that work in the timber industry or want to keep something on a faller's belt? Or do you think that the need is the same for the Navy SEAL, what he carries for the guy that's out with his chainsaw?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not going to probably need as much like penetrating wound packing equipment, but a tourniquet for sure, and some bigger, heavier bandages would be applicable, definitely. I've always thought, just like you have those things that go on the the top bar that holds the scrinch, the rubber piece. We need something like that holds a tourniquet. So every time you pick the saw up, the tourniquet's just on board on the saw.
Yeah. That's a great idea. One thing that's kind of cool to see small companies thriving and doing so well. I know me personally, my buying habits have changed, that I am deliberately going out and looking for products. It's not always available. If you're going to buy electronics and that sort of thing, or TVs, there's not going to be a USA option. But there are a lot of small companies, and with here's a perfect example. I was thinking about having a slide mill for a red dot, and there's a bazillion companies doing that. I have got local guys that do it. I've got all over the world. But do you know how I decided on the guy that I wanted to mill my slide? This is something, those of us who love firearms, it's not something you treat lightly. If you're going to chop the top of a brand new firearm, you want it to be done properly, make sure the guy knows what he's doing. But I found the guy that ultimately I'm going to have do that because he made TikTok videos, and I could see through his TikTok videos that he was passionate about what he did. He was showing his shop, he was showing his equipment, he was showing his employees. I felt like I knew the guy, even though I'd never met him. I trusted him because I could tell. You can tell a lot about a guy, the way he loads content, what he does, and ultimately he's going to have a customer before that. The power of social media to start a small business, and I think you'll testify to this, it's unprecedented, and there is no excuse. I get really annoyed at guys that start making excuses why they can't build community, why they can't leave their job that they hate because of whatever, with all the opportunity that's in front of us. Would you agree with that?
100%. I don't care what a man does until he tells me what he can't do. It happens all the time. How do I do this? Or I'm telling somebody else, and another guy jumps in and he's like, well, I have ABC. Well, I mean, you're on the phone. I mean, every one of us has $1,000 phone in their hand right now. We have ability, and we have ability to communicate and reach people. I'm sure you know what the Thomas registries are, right? Back in the early 2000s, we were doing pistol retention lanyards, and we were taking actual phone cords that were like 20 feet long and cutting them into 6-foot sections. But the curly phone cords were failing miserably. So we needed to spec out a rubber or silicone spiral with a stainless steel cable inside it. The internet didn't exist, not like it does now. So we had to go find a library big enough, which was downtown San Diego, that had a set of Thomas registries. And for people that don't know, they're these giant green books that look like old big city yellow pages. And we had to find something that might be coil or cable or whatever. And then you had to call people. I had to spend, $20 to have these pages photocopied, call them for days until we got somebody. And we got Bob on the phone, and he's like, I think we have what you need. So he sends it to us. And I'm like, perfect. This is what we need. I'll take 5,000 of them. He goes, okay, 6 months. 6 months? Everybody has the ability. The answer to everything is in your hand right now. People have no idea how easy it is to do business right now. And social media, I'll have some concept we do a t-shirt every week, a new shirt, and I'll have some idea. And usually in the middle of the night, or I'm in the shower, I'll jump out of the shower real fast, put the idea down in text, and send it to 5 or 6 people. One of my art guys, a couple of friends who always have good input. And it's usually in the middle of the night. And I'll send it to my wife, Amanda, so that she goes, why did you send? Oh, yeah, I forgot about it. I sent it to you because I knew you were going to ask me what it was. We have I can communicate around the world right now within 5 seconds. It used to be a guy would have to mail me a check, and I'd put it in the bank, and sometimes it would cash and sometimes it wouldn't cash. If a man says, I want to do something, if you're not doing it, really want to do it.
You don't really want to do it, and that's so true. And I get frustrated, I've had construction companies, and I've always had employees and had people working with me, and I've worked with a lot of different guys. And the greatest thing that the greatest gift that he ever gave me was that whenever I would come, my sister and I, whenever we would come with an excuse or why we couldn't do something, he would always say the same thing: figure it out. Just figure it out. And sometimes, many times it was complicated or complex. He would explain, do this, all you got to do is do this, but he would never do it for us. And that was so frustrating to me as a child and as a young boy. I always thought my dad was unfair. but that was the greatest gift that anyone's ever given to me, because that mentality has served me so well. I've always grown up feeling, and this is not to be, I'm not bragging or boasting about having some, an amazing skill set. I don't have an amazing skill set. I'm a jack of all trades. I know a little bit about a lot of different things, but the difference is between me and a lot of these guys that don't do anything is that figure it out mentality. I've always believed that there was nothing, if I really wanted to do it, I don't care how grand it was, that I could do if I set my mind to it. I honestly believe that. And that mentality seems to be lacking with a lot of people. I even have people that want to do a particular thing, and I'll say, come over to the shop. I'll show them, explain it to them many times, give them all the tools that they need, send them off, and they don't do it. Do you run into this? Do you think that this is something that is infecting the younger generation more so than our generation when we grew up?
I think it is. I don't know. I think so. You get 3 chances with me. You ask me how to do it, I'll tell you how to do it. I'll show you how to do it. You're never going to get to the third. You're going to get 2, really. There was no YouTube when I started building this stuff. I rented a sewing machine. A man showed me how to sew a little bit. I ran out of thread. I waited till he came back. He was a rigger in the Marine Corps. And we just learned how to do this. There was no class. The best you could do is go to like Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby. And, there's some ladies there sewing. And our machines are completely different. So we make a video every week. I sit down out here and build a product and show people how to build what I built. I answer questions and I call them kids. I mean, they're probably 25, 30 years old. But I mean, we put it all out there now. And hopefully somebody will see that and show up here and be like, hey, I want to come work for you, right? Maybe we'll catch one guy worth having out of the 1,000 people that watch those videos. I keep saying we're going to do a sew class, right? You can come in here and we'll show you how I build what I build, and we'll all trace out the same thing and cut out the same material and build the same pouch. And we just haven't done it. We've been doing so much other stuff right now. But yeah, I mean, people don't. It's like Mike Rowe says. We've just skipped over all the trades. In California, when I was in San Diego in junior high school, we had wood shop and we had home ec and we had welding and we had auto shop. And then as my kids got older, those classes weren't there, even though they went to the same school. When we moved to Tennessee here, we do have all those things. So people work with their hands here, but in the big cities, they really didn't. And we've just kind of taken this idea, again, programmed in school. We have this concept when we were growing up of the house that we lived in with our parents and how much our parents made, right? So we know that to live in this house, you have to make $75,000 or $100,000 a year or whatever. But we're programmed with that early on as a child. And then as you go through, high school, you still have that concept. If you want the prestigious job, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And that's all that's in the head of a kid. Or you're going to be, a fireman or a police officer. But we don't really tell them, if you just started your own business and you work for yourself, you have the ability to work as many hours as you want and get paid for those hours. Whereas if you show up at a job, you're always capped out. You are limited out. We don't tell kids you don't have to go to high school in order to be successful and, go way beyond where you've been programmed by government school to go. So I don't know, man. I keep saying we need to start like man camp, right? We need to just bring boys in. You can come in here and we'll show you how to properly strap down a load on a trailer. We'll show you how to scramble an egg versus fry an egg. We'll show you how to use power tools. And I said, I want to get all these guys that are the top in their industry I'm friends with all the gun guys, right? Chris Costa and Travis Haley and James Yeager and all them dudes, Pat Mack. And everyone, when I said this, I go, hey, I want to do these classes, but I want nothing to do with firearms. Everyone's like, you tell me when we're going to do this and we will be there. So it's viable. We just need to expose kids. And then I had it when I used to talk about it quite a bit on the live feeds, and the dads were like, hey, can I come too? Hey, can I bring my daughter? I don't have a son, but can I send my daughter? And I think families, I was a latchkey kid, right? My mom and father divorced. My dad was in the Navy. retired out of the Navy after 22 years. My mother worked at General Dynamics. So my sister and I, we just kind of came home. We just did our thing, but we were outside playing all the time. We were setting up, trash cans and seeing how many trash cans you could jump over with your BMX bike. When I finally got a dirt bike, I would put gasoline in a mason jar and put it in the backpack because we were going to ride so far, we would run out of gas on my XL 175 dirt bbike, my Honda.
Right.
And I'd have to put it back in and I'd still push it. I'd still end up pushing it home a little ways, but you'd scrape your knee, you'd catch the curb and have to get stitches in both sides of your chin over time. And I think we protect kids, right? We kind of had it harder as a kid, so we tried to make it easier for our kids, and it just kind of keeps going in those circles.
Yeah, it was very different, very interesting time to be alive. I think history is going to kind of speak to this, where we lived before the internet. I mean, remember going to job sites using the Thomas Guide, before we had GPS and all that sort of thing. That is a skill that is not possessed today. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about the future, and what you talked about is let's stop with the firearms thing. I mean, I'm so over that, and that so pigeonholes you with so many people that are not there yet, where you miss an opportunity to educate and to share this important message. I don't know. That's a vital component. It's very sexy and it's very fun, and there's no money that's funner to spend than on a firearm or maybe a motorcycle. But there are a lot more important things afoot than that right now. Once you get that, once you have that established.
Yeah, I think kids want to be around alpha males, right? And the alpha male, the combatives and the guns and stuff, that's super cool. But you could do so much more, right? If like tactical response here, they've got hundreds of acres out on the range. They could do an overland deal, right? We've been talking about doing a small overland meetup here on the compound, and just kind of a camp out bonfire, bring your gear, let's look at all the bags, let's tell lies and ghost stories, and look at everybody's rigs and stuff. People are hungry for it, and there's so much cross money, right? Like I said earlier, every guy with a Jeep or a Tacoma, they're all firearms owners, right? How do we get them into some training for the firearms? And most firearms owners that are going to come to a class, many of them own off-road stuff. So how do we make that fluid, right? Channel, you said civilian earlier. The dirty civilian. They're here in Tennessee. I love with the dirt bike. Yeah, I love those videos, man. I watch because I'm kind of in the firearms industry, right? We build all the gear for it, but the dirty civilian videos are different, right? I watched every minute of that dirt bike video and their tactical, their homestead video, right? I'm like, man, that's what we're doing. That's neat. Yep. So it's just bringing in, they're younger than us, right? So they're bringing in that kind of like-minded people in a generation, behind us. So it kind of gives me hopes. I mean, I know Travis and the T-Rex guys are all right here. And we're all busy doing what we're doing, but we kind of need to come together and just have a big event and bring everybody into the same place, or have multiple events and kind of bring them all,
Yeah, I think that's the future, and I had the same experience with that YouTube channel. One of my subscribers turned me on to, no, I think I found it because I was searching dirt bike stuff, and it was so well produced. And I think the key to that was it was from a perspective of someone that's a completely different generation, more from my son's generation. And I was very encouraged by that. The quality of the video and just the mindset and just the general awareness, the understanding of the world that we live in, I found that really refreshing. And it kind of opened my eye up to a need. And I'm starting to want to change my direction of the content that I make because of that. Because you can be in something for so long and understand it so well, where you start to assume that everyone has your level of understanding, and you can end up thinking that something is not worth making or doing because it's so basic. But that's not the case. If those of us that had the benefit of being raised by strong men that knew how to do things, my dad was a general carpenter, contractor, my granddad was a mechanic and fabricator. I never didn't know how to do those things. I never didn't know how to weld and rebuild a 302 engine and build a trailer and those sort of things. So I take that for granted, but these kids want to do it. They just don't have anyone to show them how.
Right, right. They're hungry for they're missing something. And I don't know that they even know what they're missing, right? It could be one of 1,000 things that they grab onto. And you put a lot of content out, and a lot of channels do put that content out. And they might be hot and heavy on the dirt bikes, or they like the dirty civilian guys, they were riding the little, I think, 150s or 250s. They might do that and then get into the bigger overland bikes, or that might transition into something else. I think it's just important to just continue to put content out, but real content, right? I think there's a lot of guys making content just to make content. And then when you show up at an event or something, they're not really what you thought they were. And maybe it's not their fault, but I mean, I've shown up places that we've seen on YouTube, and the studio is such a small sliver, right? It's fabricated to make you think something. And I think it's important. Like, that's why I do live feeds through the day. We just walk around. There's videos all around the property. There's videos of me out, my wife and I on the weekends. I mean, if you come in here, if you watch any of my content, you come in here, that's exactly who I am. Like, what you're getting from watching a dozen of my videos. That is exactly who I am. I do a live every night for 90 minutes. And you can talk to me, the guy that started the company 35 years ago. And we can talk about business. We can talk about relationships. We can talk about sewing machine. We can talk about anything, gardening, whatever it is you want to talk about. So I think that's the big thing. People are just missing something, and they want to belong to, I mean, I think everybody wants to belong to something, right? Everybody wants to be appreciated for something. So I just kind of show what we do, and the correct people show up that are kind of at least part of the puzzle.
Yeah, and you keep saying that if you start moving in a particular direction, or you put yourself out there, these people will come into your life. You'll find these like-minded people, and that's been my experience as well. There's a lot of dudes, and it could be a lot to do with our culture or insecurity, what have you, that are reluctant to go up and interject themselves into a group of guys that they don't know. I understand that's a hard thing to do. What I've told guys is that if you're passionate about overland or firearms or motorcycles, just start going to these events, because having something that is, if you want to talk to a guy, the easiest way to make a friendship or an acquaintance is to have a common ground. Like, if you're really into XR Hondas and you see a guy in the street that's got a really sweet XR 650L, it's all customized, you can walk up to that guy and you're not going to feel awkward. You can immediately have something and talk about it for days. And that's how you get into it. If you want to be around these like-minded, prepared-minded people, you need to find out where they're at. The Overland festivals, the shooting classes. Like, I would imagine if you go through one of James's classes, tactical response, you're going to meet friends there. Whenever I've been to Clint Thunder Ranch or any Clint Smith's class, I've made friends for life from those events, the people I never knew before that we still stay in contact with because of that common thread.
Yeah, and the cost of entry is really not that high, right? What do you need? A Glock pistol, a belt, and some magazines, and the class. And now you have people who have traveled from wherever all over the world in a lot of cases, but you all have that thing in common. And the tactical response alumni, it's thousands of people, man. I'm in the private groups all the time, and you'll see somebody, hey, I'm driving through Texas and I'm broke down on the 40. Anybody that can come help. And there'll be 20 dudes like, hey, we're on the way. And it's that secret handshake. You're never at Home Depot or Lowe's, and there's not a Toyota Tacoma or 4Runner there, right? There's always some dude there with a rooftop tent. And half the time they're waiting at my truck when I come out, and we meet each other, right? And then I can tell them, hey, check out, it's the secret handshake.
It is the secret handshake. I was laughing. I don't even want to count the hours that I spend cleaning and polishing and customizing my dirt bikes, just for the hopes that some guy, like-minded guy, will see it and comment on it. I mean, really, when it comes, I'm not doing it for myself, right?
Yeah,
it's like a woman says I dress for myself. No, you don't. You dress for attention. Just like we build our bikes and everything and keep them clean for other guys' attention, right?
Yeah, it's just like a watch, man. I don't ever look at a watch to see what time it is. I look at this thing in my hand to see what time it is. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's that secret
Well,
handshake, man.
I'm of the opinion, I don't have a scripture for this, but I have an opinion, to build on what you said, that the Lord knows what we have need of before we ask. If you're looking for
Mm.
community and you feel like you're alone out here and you're getting black pilled and everything is hopeless, I can assure you that it's not. There's a lot more folks, there's a lot more guys that are right in line that would stand shoulder to shoulder with you in a shield line if you only could meet them and only knew they were out there. And the only way of doing that is putting yourself out there. It seems to me, I'm really been discouraged with the modern day church and how ineffective it seems to be, and just the dogmas. And you can go to a church that 20 years later and the same old people doing the same old things. They're not affecting anything. There's power in the gospel, and I see God moving people, raising men up. And this seems to be the movement, this self reliance, this independence, this community base, this building basically building the church of God through this prepper community. I mean, it may be a bit of a stretch, but I
No,
seem to think, I really think that we have a mandate to push that forward, and that's the way that the gospel is truly going to be spread, or how we're going to get masculine men back into the church.
the church is the people. It's not the steeple.
Right.
And you are very correct, man. Bringing people together. Um, I've been out of the church for a very long time, very turned off to it even. And starting the SelfReliance Festival a couple of years ago and bringing people together and doing the podcast and sitting down with guys that just have the most incredible stories, that is the most common thing that they have in common, right? I've had several people on my podcast who didn't know each other, but had almost identical stories. I'm rain. I'm about to kill myself, and an angel came to me, right? And it's the most incredible stories. And I'm listening to this and literally tearing up, and I've got goosebumps all over hearing these people tell their stories. But then you hear the same stories multiple times from people who have never met each other.
Okay.
It's just, we know when we're doing something, whether it's right or wrong. We know when we're doing something that's wrong, we know that it's not the right thing to do. And we know when we're doing the right thing that it's oftentimes way more difficult and there's an easier way to do it. But if you add value and you get around good people, you're going to be the sum of the, three people that you spend the most time with, right? And when we were growing up, we all had that friend. They're like, that guy's a bad influence on you. Our parents all told us that, right? And now as an adult, you know what that looks like. We know what that means. And if you get around people that are high performers, you are going to perform better. If you get around people that are better human beings, you are going to be a better human being. Because if you're not, you're going to get left behind rather quickly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's an exciting time. Coming out of COVID, there was so much that changed. I think we spoke to this, and the common thread with my friends and such is, it's amazing how my eyes were open to things that I didn't see before. Primarily relationships. There were so many people, and even family members in our life that we had considered to be close friends, family members, as close as anyone, that we look at very differently now. When we saw a little bit of pressure, a little bit of stress, we saw the true character come out, and we saw the mask come off, and we have cut ties, like we said, probably with 75% of the people that we had considered to be friends in the past, just no longer compatible with these people. I think this idea of solidarity, and if we could just get our people in, we're all going to come to the same conclusion. I see in this country a divide that's the fracture is so great, that there is no common ground to be found with just America as a whole. I see people picking sides. It's almost as if God is separating the sheep from the goats. Um, it's more important now to find those sheep and to tie in with them, because we're going to need them in the future. Do you see a great awakening coming, and do you think God is separating these people for a great work in the future?
So I do think that's what it is. And that's actually hard for me to say, right? Because that means different direction. I'm 52 years old. No matter how you look at it, more than half of my life is over. I have less than a third of my life remaining now. So I have to move in a very different direction. I have to set an example for the people with me. I have to set an example for the people behind me. And yes, I do think that that's exactly what's happening. I also think there's a lot more of us than people realize, right? I think that we only communicate through this thing right here. And I think the algorithms amplify the smallest amount, literally insane people, right? We used to put those people in places called asylums. And now this thing just shows this to you. And the people we spend time thinking, man, the world is just it's too far gone, right? We can't help it. That's because they take the people that are like you and they suppress their ability to communicate with each other, right? They don't amplify those good voices and the voices for good. So when you go places and you see 1,000 people show up, you're like, huh, maybe what I thought isn't really reality. This thing right
Yeah.
here, you have to be careful. This is programming right here. You have to be careful what you are being programmed with, because it is affecting you. If you look at the shorts, for instance, right? Even it got me. Like, we're doing shorts because we have to get the algorithms to work on all the platforms, even TikTok. But now it's 15 seconds, right? We have an attention span of 15 seconds. For shorts to work, you've got a second to capture their attention. You've got the first 2 to 3 seconds for a call to action, and then maybe they watch the rest of that short. So kids now, it's like I remember saying things and mom's like, you've made up your own language or whatever. But now you hear a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old speak, they're using words that we've never even used before. And they've also rewritten the language, right? We're changing the language. And all those people that we used to call friends, I say that all the time. People are very, very, they don't use strong words, right? We say friend. But when you push them, you're like, well, when's the last time you were in the same room with your friend? When's the last time you had a meal with your friend? What is the name of your friend? Well, I know him on the internet. Oh, so you've never actually met him. So Bob might be Bill and Jill might be Bob, for all you know. We don't know these people. We've never, we've never shared the same breath with them. Conspire at the rawest form means to breathe together, and we have not. And they're rewriting words, right? And those people you said, those friends, where we're no longer friends with 50, 60, 70% of those people. When you look at what happened in Germany and you're like, how did that happen? Well, I was just doing my job, and that is how that happened. And with a little bit, people don't have hardship, right? They have not been pressure tested. And when things got a little bit difficult, you saw exactly what they were going to, all those guys are like, I'm coming to your place when things go bad. Man, you're not, if you ain't been here, you ain't coming here. And if you're not, if you don't have 2 years worth of food here, you're probably not even going to make it here. Like, as soon as things go bad and get tested a little bit, I mean, we all know that the interstate gets closed down when one person has a flat tire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we saw a lot during COVID. We saw people that I had so many friends that, regardless of what side you fall on, the jab or not the jab, so many friends that capitulated because of fear of losing a job, or fear of losing a social, or friends and such. And I just thought, if you don't have, whatever side you fall on, I'm not judging anyone, but if you don't have the courage to stand up one way or another for that, then you're not going to be of any use to anyone when you're truly under pressure.
Yes, a lot of them have no identity. They latched onto that. They're still wearing the costume in public, right? Their identity is that, whatever that was, right? That's what they've latched onto, and it's like victim mentality. You'll hear people that are like, oh, I hurt my back in the high school football game, and I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. And you're like, well, you're 35 years old now. Meanwhile, you've got people who have lost limbs in combat who have redeployed multiple combat deployments with prosthetic limbs. It's
right.
And I'm not saying that there aren't truly people that are damaged. Of course there are, but it's that victim mentality. And we've also, it gave people a little bit of anonymity. So it's the mob mentality, right? You're in the grocery store without a mask, and the person with the mask beelines across the grocery store and is yelling at you, you don't have your mask on and you're harming people and you're going to kill grandma. But if they really believe that, wouldn't they avoid you rather than beeline to you? It's just that they had that, I feel like they had no power, and this has somehow given them a false sense of power.
Yeah, and an identity and a culture to side with. And that's what's kind of about when you I'm married to I'm married into a Swedish family. So I had growing up in America from a family that didn't really travel. I'd never experienced like a true a country with a culture. And this culture is really lacking here. The identity, like if you like, what do you stand for? Where do you live? What is your land? Where is your home? If you don't have roots, it's like, interesting thing is when we were going through it. We talked to a woman a while back that worked with was a counselor and worked with a lot of couples and different people. And when we were just having a conversation, when she found out that my wife and I, that our parents were still married and still living in the household home, that we could actually go home to our bedrooms that we grew up in. She closed her book because she was astonished. She's like, "This is the first time in my practice in decades that I've actually heard this happen before. This, do you realize how rare this is? That you guys can actually go back home, that you know where your roots are, that you know where you come from." It dawned on me that I have something to fight for. I love Oregon, the Pacific Northwest. I love the smell and the culture and the people and the tree. I'm third generation here. I love this country. I would die and fight for it. It means everything to me. It's where I come from. It's where I'm comfortable from. I'm happy to go travel other places, but home is home. And I'm willing to fight for that. My family is here. But you take a young man or a woman and they're out to college and they're separated from their parents are divorced, and then they move to different countries. What do you hold sacred? What is it that you're fighting for? What is your line that you won't cross? There isn't one. And so a person like that can easily be swayed and manipulated, because fight for this country, fight for what? I don't even have a place that I even call home.
Yeah, I mean, we take old folks now and we warehouse them, right? Rather than having multiple properties or a grandma flat. um, you know, our kids aren't at home. We send them out to school, so we don't have our elderly with us. Whereas if we had the elderly with us, they would assist raising the kids, and then the next generation can work, whether it be from home or someplace in the community. So if you have
Yeah.
multiple generations in the home, that's something to build for, right? Where do most people want to live now? They want to live in these stacking packs where you have, I mean, they've got apartments to rent that are like 100 square feet in the United States now, 200 square feet. And that's the whole deal. They don't tell people, hey, 10 acres and a mule, 5 acres and, independence. We don't preach that anymore. That's your, they make that sound evil. And that, I think a lot of that comes from the programming, right? You heard about the back to the land movement in the 60s and the 70s. I really think that's
Yeah.
happening. I think it's not amplified. You just have to look for it to know that it's there. It's like Atlas
Yeah. Go.
Shrugged, right?
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
when you find that community, you realize there's a whole nother world out there.
Right. Yeah, and it's easy it's easy to become nostalgic. I watched my dad become nostalgic. Things were so much better in the 50s and 60s, and I find myself, I'm 50, 53, 54 now, getting nostalgic for the things. Oh, these kids these days and such. And I think that there is a certain amount of that the older you get, the less compliant, less flexible, the less ability you have to accept new ideas and relate to the kids. I don't blame these kids that don't know anything near as much as I blame. I think that there has been a concerted effort to undermine our culture, undermine our country, to strip away our identity, and that the kids and the young people are the wreckage from this. The parents are at fault. We're all at fault. We've all could have done better and held on to what was given us. But I don't necessarily blame the kids for them not knowing. If there wasn't a father in the house, or an engaged father that taught them how to use tools and use these things, how are they supposed to know that? So it seems to me, as a Christian man and someone that feels a calling to do something or spread the gospel, that this is a key component of the work forward. Is that these, whether it be whatever you're doing, a small business, doing nylon, that you're building a community, having people out, teaching them skills. This is going to be critical for future businesses that are going to thrive against the monoliths in the future. Wouldn't you agree?
I most definitely would. There's an attack on the family. I mean, that's how, well, like if government to exist, government has to continue to grow. For government to continue to grow, they need to break up the family. If you had a strong family, you would have less need for government, right? So you break the family up, you give the mother assistance. The first thing they say is the father can't be in the home. Like we want to warehouse men. We put them into, I mean, look up privatized prison. If you haven't ever heard of it, it will blow your mind. private prisons and private jails and just the financial things that happen within there. It's modern day slavery, a lot of it. I'm not saying that people don't need to be in prison. I'm saying that there's a lot of people in prison, though, because of financial gain of the privatized prison systems. But I'm the tinfoil hat guy for sure.
Well, no, I wear the tinfoil hat as well. I think I wear the tinfoil underwear. I go that far. I'll tell you, yeah, it's interesting. The private prison system, just on a side note, my son Jack's 18. He's involved in national speech and debate, and that's a topic that he's researching and looking into. And I didn't have any idea until I started hearing it of how corrupt that was. And that's not only, it doesn't stop there. It is also the family court. I just recently realized that the judges, there's incentive for the judges for these alimony and child support payments. They profit from this. It's terrible what's going on with these systems. And we see, what it seems to be is that the true alpha man of this country has to produce the leaders, if put in the right environment, if God were to be able to come into their heart that could really affect change. The moment they stand up and start pushing against the system, there's a place for them, and that's the federal prisons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm not going to keep you anymore, John. You and I could probably go on and on all day about this. I want to thank you for the time, for the great business that you're doing, about being so transparent. It's really nice to see a company that's not circling the wagons and protecting trade secrets. You're opening up your sewing floor. You're holding classes. You're teaching people how to do stuff. Could we finish with a quick tour of your sew room? Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's where we build everything.
Yeah.
This is product being turned and cleaned. We cut stuff through here. All the fabrics, elastic, all the materials. We ship out of here. We ship 200 to 400 boxes every day direct to consumer. This is product right here that's just sitting to be pulled. When we run stuff, we'll pull orders, run everything, and then run, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen extra of whatever it is. 2-point slings, we just built all those probably Friday. I don't know. We've got a bunch of your radio pouches are out on the floor right now being built. Do I still have audio?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, awesome. So that's where it happens. I mean, there's human beings here. There's not a factory in China. This is in Camden, Tennessee, between Memphis and Nashville right here. But there's, I got sewing machines sitting all over the place. We run as many of them as we can.
Yeah. Well, everyone I'm hearing, especially, there's a lot of small businesses around here, and people are really struggling to find, I'll close with this, to find not even quality people, just people that will show up on Monday. What do you think is behind this labor shortage?
I'm not really sure well, okay. I think a lot of them have expired. I think a lot of them took the thing, and I think that a lot of them are no longer present. If you look at the actuaries and the life insurance policy payouts from 21 to 22, 18 to 65-year-old males, death rate is up 40%. The numbers aren't in for 22 to 20 or 23 yet. If you look at like Valuetainment, Bet David, that's what they do. They do life insurance policies and insurance, and those numbers came from him. He's the one saying, hey, those death rate numbers are up 40%. You take that and I don't know. I go to restaurants and stuff and everybody's understaffed everywhere. I talk to people. I'm like, what are you paying the employees? They're like, man, we're paying, $30 an hour. We're paying $40 an hour. And they're still understaffed. I don't know where they are. I think you have a lot of people that came out of high school during the last 3 years and never went to work. They just kind of stay at mom's house and video game or whatever. And then I think a lot of the people that ran a lot of things and did a lot of the grunt work were the older elderly people. And I think that they just said, hey, enough is enough. And they're either not at work or they themselves have expired as well. Like you go to the big box stores, there's not a greeter at Walmart anymore. The lady and the old man that used to be there, they're not there any longer. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Having an 18-year-old son, I'm kind of a little bit more plugged into that community, and I'm always asking this question from that generation because I'm concerned about those boys because those boys are going to dictate the future by and large, and the general consensus among the 18 and 19-year-old is when they survey the landscape and they look at a starter house costing $500,000. And they look at their boomer parents or whatever that are still working and struggling and living a lifestyle that they don't want, and 2 or 3 weeks of vacation a year. What I'm hearing from them is they just don't want that anymore, and that there's no point. What's the point of trying to get out there and struggle? And I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is just what they're saying. I'm just going to stay at home and smoke pot, watch porn, and play video games because I'll never be able to get ahead in this world. That's what I see.
Well,
Unfortunately, a lot of them thinking.
amusement in the rawest form of the word, it means no thought, right?
Yeah.
So if we can just entertain you, you will not think, you will not want for anything more. I mean, look how many people just eat fast food, right? As long as they can get fast food and whatever their vice is, cigarettes or vape nowadays or weed, whatever it is, do you want to hire a guy that's coming in after drinking all weekend? Do you want to hire a guy that's coming? I don't care what you do on your own time until it affects what you do while I'm paying you to do what you do. My people here are amazing. I have people. I'd say that 75% of my employees right now on payroll have worked for me for over a decade. I've got a girl out here who's on summer break or school break right now, so she's 16. So I mean, we do have some younger people, but the majority of them have been here for over a decade now. I've got people that have worked for me for over 15 years right now.
Yeah. Well, that
And we
says
work, and we never,
a lot.
and we
It says a
never
lot
did
about.
shut down. Yeah,
Yeah.
we never shut down. Not a single day did we shut down.
Yeah. Huh. It's you get to the point where, especially when you have a platform where you can reach a lot of people, and you feel like, well, if I could just explain to everyone, if I could just get the truth, they would come around to my way of thinking. But the reality of it is, I think we just kind of have to fall back on the words of Christ: "Let the dead bury the dead." There are the sheep and the goats. There are the people that are going to respond to the message, and there are the people that never will. Regardless, there is a massive gulf between those two, and there gets to be a point where it's foolish and you're wasting resources and time reaching across an expanse that you'll never be able to bridge. And I think we're best focused on the people that are responding, that get it, and start building those communities, and just not worry about the future and just trust our ability to adapt the best we can when that situation comes, because we have the promise that the Lord knows what we have need of before we ask. I try to wake up and not be fearful of what I can't control and what I don't understand. But I do feel that we have an obligation, just like Noah built an ark, just like Joseph stored up 7 years of food. We have an obligation to prepare for difficult times, and that this prepping or overlanding or prepared mindedness is not unbiblical, like a lot of people will say, that it is in line with biblical teachings, and it's something that we're mandated to do, I think, from this day forward. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think so many people in the church are so focused on the way you have to, have your relationship with God, right? They lose so many people. Overlanding is very similar to prepping, right? Camping, very similar to prepping. Who cares how we get them there as long as they get there? But everybody's got that specific thing. I noticed somebody in the comments said $17 won't get you a retirement. No, maybe it won't. But most people saying 17 won't get you a retirement, they're also not working. Maybe you should work for 17 and work your way to 30, or maybe you should build something yourself and employ people and sign the front of a check instead of the back of the check, right?
Right.
Find what you love to do that, and then pay people to help you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. The number one, the word that comes to mind with the greatest thing that is what was always given me success, the ability to achieve dreams or goals, has been consistency.
Yep, every day.
Consistency is the thing. Maybe not the flashiest, maybe not the best, but the dude that just keeps plodding, you will get there. And if you can do that, if you can get your family on board with you, especially your wife, If you can get both of you on the same page where you're praying together, that you envision the goal, that you're in harness together, I don't know. There's some special sauce God's created that just makes things happen and brings people into your life that will help you achieve those things that you can't quantify, that a secular person, just does not have the ability to tap into. You there, John?
I am here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Having your wife on board is enormous, whether in every aspect, right? If you have your wife, and she, like, my wife works here in the business. My wife is right outside there. We're together almost 24 hours a day. When we're not, it's a brief amount of time. She is number one. The kids were number two. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the kids. If you're not on the same page with your wife, then the kids aren't, that's just how that has to work. Everything we do is within the business also. And it's just what we do. People ask all the time, like, people started asking us relationship advice. And I'm like, I'm not in any position to give relationship advice, but I guess I kind of am, because we've been together a very, very long time. So we just, we just do what's right. We do what's best for us and our employees and our family. And if somebody doesn't like that, then they're not going to show up. And if they do, then they're going to come and be part of it. And what we're doing, and I mean, I have a track record. I've run this company for 35 years. It's still here. And I'm still doing the same thing, right? I work every single day. Every day I work. Not because I have to. It's because it's what I do.
Yeah. Well, I sure do appreciate your time, John. I would, if someone were, can you give your YouTube channel, and how would someone get a hold of you? Do you have openings for your annual get-togethers where you do the how-to? I forget, what did you call them?
SelfReliance Festival. The next one is October 14th. Yep, 14th and 15th. SelfReliance Festival.
Tennessee.
Yep, it's right here on the compound. SelfRelianceFestival.com. And then my YouTube channel is obviously right here. Everybody can see that. It's Special Operations Equipment. The website is sotacticalgear.com. I do a live every night. I saw a lady asking, or I assume it's a lady asking, how to take an Etsy shop to a real full-time business. We have those conversations all the time. Jump on my live feed, ask questions. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, it's wonderful what you're doing, and I feel the same way. And I would reach out if you are someone that feels isolated, you don't have a community, and you're just getting depressed. Get plugged into these groups. Either come to our live stream. We're here 12:30 every day, Monday through Friday. John's live stream. Get out to some of the Overland festivals. I'm a big advocate of getting yourself a dual sport bike and getting plugged in. You're going to meet like-minded guys. And just like John said, if you get into any one of those things, whether it be overland or dirt biking or four-wheel drives, you're going to meet like-minded people. You're going to find people that share your belief on things, and you're going to be able to get plugged into a community. But you got to put yourself out there. And there's never been an easier time to find like-minded people. I know we're more isolated now than ever, but you do have it. But you got to take that first step. Just put it out there. Do it prayerfully, and God will bring these people into your life. And just plug in the best you can, and be encouraged. I feel very honored to be alive at this time of life, to be called out of the world, and that God thinks that I would have the ability to offer Him something by doing this or spreading the gospel in some way. I feel greatly honored and very humbled, and I think that this needs to be our business. We have to run YouTube channels, we have to do manufacturing, but I'll never separate the two. People often ask, I want you to separate the religious stuff from the homesteading stuff. I'm like, if it weren't for the religious stuff, for my relationship with God, there wouldn't be any homesteading, and I probably wouldn't be alive to talk to you. So you're asking me to do the impossible. So just get plugged in. You're not alone. Don't lose hope. We're living in an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to every day in the future. And I really appreciate you giving us time, John, what you're doing. The quality of people that I've met on YouTube and in this community, it shocks me. I would imagine that when you have 1,000 people come out there, that the majority of those are some of the best people you've ever met.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they took their time to come here to the middle of nowhere. I mean, they're already bought in. They're already qualified.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to say, John, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, listen, as crazy as things are, this thing is programming you, right? Most of the crazy stuff happening day to day, nobody would know if this thing didn't tell you, right? And I think a lot of it is by design. It's to keep you in the fight or flight mode. When you're in the fight or flight mode and that cortisol and that adrenaline and that fear, you can't be rested. And it is stealing energy and life from you. And if you took and just ignored a lot of that and put it into developing something of your own, none of that would matter, because when you're working for yourself and you're working in a business and you're growing a business and you put all that energy instead into that, a lot of that stuff that bothers you or that you're worried about, number one, you don't have time for it. Number two, it doesn't affect you any longer.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Someone that's involved with on all these social media sites, and as plugged in as I am, I get caught up in that, and it's the programming is very strong, even when you know it's happening. You have to make a
Yeah.
deliberate. You have to consciously resist it and understand it and see it for what it is. My refuge, and probably similar to yours, is when I'm done with all of that. I try to get out. I jump on my dirt bike and I head up in the mountains, up in the wilderness, oftentimes by myself. And it's so funny because all of the problems and the angst and all the worries, the forest doesn't know any different. Everything's the same as it was when I was a child. And it just highlights to the phony nature and the fakeness and the propaganda of the digital world. It really is. There is a real divide there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you turned this off, you wouldn't know. If you turn this off for 72 hours and just go do real things, right? Things would, you would even breathe different. You would sleep different. Everything would happen. If the world's going to end or they launch some missiles or aliens, believe me, somebody will come find you and tell you without this thing telling you.
Right, right. Yeah, you'll see it. Yeah, everyone can see the sky currently.
Yeah, I call it war within arm's reach, right? Does it change the temperature of the water in my pool? And if the answer is no,
Exactly.
what could you do? What could you do instead with that energy?
A lot.
Yes,
Yeah, a lot.
yes.
Yeah. Well, we had a bunch of super chats. I was so interested in what you were talking about, I was not paying attention to it. So I do apologize to everyone. I'll see if the guys can't collate those for me. We will address those at the beginning of next stream. I don't want to keep John any longer. He's got a lot going on. I appreciate and respect his time. I will let you go this time. Thank you, John, so much. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to meet someday. And Lord willing, maybe we could get out there to Tennessee to see you guys one of these
Love it.
days.
Yeah, we'd love to have you out.
Well, you'll always have an open invitation if you want to come out west to God's country.
We might head out there sometime.
All right, brother. Thank you. Thank you for what you do and making time for us. We sure do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you around, John.
All right.